Namaskaram. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. This is your daily global insights, episode number 88. We are going to talk about Indian budget and many other things. As always, welcome to PGurus channel. Sridhar Tityalaji, Namaskaram.
Namaskar and good morning to everybody on a bright snowing morning here in New York. You get a chance, you may be able to see glimpses of it in the back of my screen.
Absolutely, it's continuing to snow. It's a great backdrop to have. First off, viewers, everybody looks at budget in India as to what is in it for them. Is it going to increase their expenditure or is it going to give them some break? We are not going to look at the nitty-gritty details. What we are going to do is look at the big picture. What is the plan that the finance minister has laid out? How does it impact India over the next 2-3 years? And to know all these things, Sridharji is going to give us his view on how he sees the budget, and we will look at some of the specific line items where it will impact the common man, but that will come right after this. So, Sridharji, quickly, your thoughts.
Great, thank you so much, sir. First and foremost, I think congratulations to Nirmala Sitaramanji and Prime Minister Modi ji and the finance team of Sanjeev Sanyal and KV Subramaniam. I think they've done an outstanding job in terms of course, the central bankers as well, and probably the other people in the finance ministry. To complete the sentence, congratulations to all the members. I think it's one of the most what I call as forward-looking budgets, which combines both the needs of pandemic and the rigors that are needed for India to be a 5 trillion economy and then moving forward. So any budget should reflect that. And we saw that yesterday in our discussions, whether people are able to appreciate it or not. The story is that, I keep reinforcing to people that Trump's budget, stimulus budget and program was an outstanding budget. So to Nirmala Sitaramanji, kudos to her and, to making this budget. There was a lot of apprehensions, what is going to be the budget that's going to come out. It's almost like make or sink. Now, here's, if you want me to jump into some key kind of overall strategic context, I'll just start with a one-liner, then I'll hand it to you. I think the whole budget is about health, is about defense, is about growth, is about development, and is about innovation. All those things which are, of course, human capital development. And India is, has got a mixed record in terms of the human capital development, but on other facets, they clearly have demonstrated, they're right up there with the best in the league. But the human capital development is going to be very critical in India in terms of moving forward. I think there's given enough attention. So those are my kind of five high-level macro drivers in terms of what makes this budget different, and the markets are giving a thumbs up.
Good to know that. So, in overall, the direction in which this budget is headed as far as helping the supply side or the demand side, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that India has a dual problem, right? India has one is a capital formation problem, and second is a demand stimulation problem, right? So historically, India has relied on the government on the capital formation, and that is the reason why I say this with a great sense of indignation, that to achieve the first $1 trillion, India probably took 45 years or so to achieve the first $1 trillion of GDP. It's purely because the supply was controlled and the demand was regulated to the extent that the economy never kind of grew, and they accepted that this is the, I don't know what you want to call Nehruvian or a socialistic model of Indian evolution. Right. But we have seen the last 2 trillion come fairly quickly, and we probably will go to the third and the fourth trillion, which will take it to the 5 years far more rapidly relative to the years, to the preceding years. So the demand and supply side play a pivotal role in making it happen, because you can't have a 5 trillion economy, which is translated, could be around 15, 16 trillion PPP. Right now, India is around 10.5, $10 trillion PPP on the basis of its, 3 trillion or $3.2 trillion economy. So I think that, so what you are seeing is that they are putting it across both the demand and the supply side of the ledger. And Modi has pointed out very clearly that he needs to generate what you call dividends so that the stakeholders, which are on the rural side, they call as the social capital. The social capital can be funded through dividends generated by harnessing the assets of the nation. You don't kind of you have to reward the stakeholders with dividends. You can't kind of keep on making them wait for eternally here, then the markets kind of tank your stock, if I have to use the market terminology. So I think he's doing that quite well. So this budget, if you look at it from a capital formation point of view, you can see that the programs that has come in place, reflect that, which is namely the disinvestment program. I think they're targeting about 1.75 crores, lakh crores, which I believe they will achieve that number rather than some big number that you aim for, and you often find you're missing the boat. So that will go into the balancing the revenue side of the balance sheet. They are diluting the capital requirements in the insurance sector, to about 74%. Then they are opening the market for, so they are going LIC, which is one of the largest insurance holdings in the world. They're going to an IPO, so therefore there's going to be a lot of equity flowing into the life insurance corporation, not reliant on the government sector. I think they're putting between 20 to 25,000 crores in the recapitalization of the balance sheet of the banks, which also helps them to further credit enhancement. One of the two sectors which have shown tremendous growth but have not received the necessary attention purely based on the relative risk-weighted rules of lending in the banking is the infrastructure as well as the MSME sector. MSME sector, I don't know. I've heard different numbers. Numbers are always a tough game in India. And what I hear on the MSME is that it employs close to 50% of the people, between 40 to 42% of the GDP comes from the MSME sector, but it has not received the necessary capital. So therefore, they are likely to form an independent institution which is focused towards MSME, where they will allow private equity and other forms of capital to flow in building that MSME institution. They have announced the formation with initial 25,000 crores of the infrastructure bank or infrastructure institution. And infrastructure has been one of the phenomenal kind of growth segments in India. On the heavy manufacturing side, they have been receiving very good flow of capital into the defense sector, and because they diluted again the equity portion with foreign companies to come and manufacture. The defense budget itself is around 17%. So you are beginning to see the big ticket items on the what you call as the supply side of the economics being lifted. One of the most refreshing things where India lost its momentum is in the textile sector. The textile sector, India was one of the leaders, but they lost it to Vietnam, they lost it to Bangladesh, they lost it to some of the even Latin American nations. So they are forming this six textile parks. So I can reasonably guess, whose hand, is in this. And this is one of the sectors my former colleague, Mr. Dear friend, Dr. Aravind Panagaria was constantly stating, give the textile sector a boost. We have everything. Every village has a textile shop, right? We should have kind of re-engineered. So the story is that I'm very delighted to see that that segment being given the due attention. They have introduced this hydrogen sector. So all these things that what you're seeing is on the supply side. On the demand side, I think what they're saying here is the social capital programs. There are 17, 18 different names, and people locally who are extremely familiar, further extending the LPG connections, further enhancing other types of benefits goes into the rural household, because the per capita is a lagger in India purely because of 55% of the population do not participate in the economic activity. So that's where I think the social capital, what he calls, that he's going to use. So I think these are my kind of, and then I can talk a little bit about, once I'll pause for a couple of seconds and then I can talk about some of the things around the structural side.
Thank you. And I will give you some of the things that are being passed off as a central effort to increase prices. I want to disabuse our viewers. As far as I read it, the taxes cess on petrol is 2.5 rupees per day per liter, and diesel is 4 rupees per liter. That starts taking effect from tomorrow morning. We have to remember that petrol, diesel, and liquor are not under GST. These are state governments. The state governments are deciding to do this thing. They might want to pass it off as a central government expense, but I think viewers should remember that these are state government related initiatives. Also, I want you to quickly touch upon the fact that now NRIs can form a single person company in India. That used to be not possible before. I think that is a tremendous step in the forward direction. The reason is that all big ideas start small.
Yeah, indeed, sir. Just to kind of again caveat, I am a market economist and a banker, and I come from, if I have to put $10, how would I allocate capital and how much portion of money I would allocate to India? So I'm coming from that side of the business, right? So therefore, to respond to the question that Sree Iyerji has asked, I see four specific drivers which help us in terms of, first and foremost, this one-man company formation is very, very pivotal because large pools of small investors and mid-sized investors. I'm talking about these people with $1 million to $5 million to $10 million. High net worth officers who want to quickly set up a company, invest, start some activity, and kind of get things underway. That's a great news for them. So you are beginning to now attract that capital. Second, they have eliminated this draconian dual taxation. I am an investor in India through our venture capital fund, and we see the draconian aspect of this tax is a very tax what you call disincentive destination. Okay, we get punished for investing in India and make a gain. So I think it's good to see that the dual taxation. So in other words, I can pay either the Indian tax or I can pay the US kind of the tax and move that. And I think the third rule is the 120 days residency kind of status. They are removing that. I think there's a lot of hue and cry, and I think that probably is coming. This is not finance. This is more Ministry of External Affairs, is the concept of a dual citizenship, which would probably open up the window. So when I look at both from what you call three important segments, one, participation in large cap, I believe that this dilution and new institutions help. The participation of one man now will help, especially in the MSME sector, right? So 10 friends come to me and say, look, I'm starting this kind of a setup. If you like to invest here, you can invest, or you set up a one-man company in India and let that be the capital formation company. And then you can begin to now invest into each one of us. Then we have a mechanism to kind of do that. I recognize they're also trying to minimize this bureaucracy in terms of getting business, but that's always a challenge in India. Hopefully that things will begin to improve on that side. I think the second middle layer, which is very, very significant from an Indian evolution point of view, is the ability to attract capital for investment into the equity markets. One of the things that we had made a plea is the FPI scheme, especially into the small cap market. That thing has been opened up, and they're going to further open up that. So when you look at the three important pivots in terms of the capital allocation and capital formation, I think that they have done, in my view, on the supply side. I know that your focus is on demand as well. I'm not an expert on the demand side of the Indian ledger, right? I can speak about how we allocate capital from on the supply side, and I think that these are all very good. Before I forget, because that was the other point, the whole asset restructuring, distressed asset program. There were four important financial programs that was necessary during Modi's first term. First and foremost was the whole compliance to the global standards, financial compliance to the global standards. They achieved that. Basel III compliance, which is the risk. So all banks, were recapitalized. Number two. Number three is the capital adequacy norms, right, which is the banks, what type of capital. And number four is the whole monetary policy, which is through an external monetary policy committee, which was looking at interest rates. I think interest rates are still very high in India. But the next tier of activities that followed was the single market, which is GST. The GST is beginning to pay off. The fourth quarter, the numbers are, I've just saw the numbers from one of the analyst institutions. The numbers look very good. If those numbers hold, then the contraction of the Indian GDP will look relatively better than what has been forecast, very similar to United States. But the most important measure where the capital is going is the distressed assets program, right? So to recapitalize and to take it off the balance sheet of the institutions, banks, and do a distress release program, and without violating any kind of, I think, unwarranted, in my view, Supreme Court kind of intervened. But now they have a asset monetization committee and asset resolution committee as part of the asset resolution process or asset monetization process. That would begin to also help in the capital recapitalization and unloading of the numbers from the balance sheet. So you can see I'm speaking to you not whether $1,000 has been put into somebody's pocket or $2,000 has been put into, or 20,000 rupees tax slabs have been removed, or whether it's that part of it. Only thing that I can say is, as a fiscal conservative, the good thing is that there is no capital gains, there is no wealth tax, and there is no further kind of new taxes that has been levied, no tax, which is all augurs well. Because that's the only way you kind of get people to spend more money.
Thank you, sir. Let's take a quick look at other things happening around the world. Myanmar just had a coup, and people are wondering if there is a Chinese hand in this. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that there is clearly that this is not just something that has propped up, overnight. But the fact that you are making, there are semblances. China is making its presence felt in a number of places. And I mean, I don't have, off the record or on the record evidence, but it points to the fact that if there is a coup, the natural extension of this is going to be falling into the hands of the Chinese. The military junta is with the Chinese. And if you are somebody who is interested in both Mekong River Valley efforts as well as the border skirmishes strategic that happens in that specific region with India, both are problematic, right? Because the Laos Dam is not too far from that specific place. Laos is also Cambodia is also going through a tough tenure with the Chinese. All we need is Myanmar in their hands. So this is not a very good news. So it's a big challenge, and Biden has gone to sleep. I mean, in the sense that he's still struggling to get his stimulus and act together. So I think it's a problem.
So, in other news, Thailand has challenged the Laos River Dam building. I'm just going to quickly go through one or two things because I want you to weigh in on this one important thing. I think it's Jake Sullivan speaks countering Chinese narrative. So, don't you think that now Biden is also kind of getting onto the same page as the outgoing Trump administration?
Well, I think there is still the settling down would be the right thinking to kind of say, because if I look at Thomas Greenfield, Lindsay Thomas Greenfield's statement, she's talking about talking to China. If you talk about Janet Yellen, she's talking about collaborating. If you talk about Blinken, Blinken on one side is talking about Quad with India, and then he's talking with counterterrorism affairs with Pakistan, and then he's talking about fighting. And then the only person to me who has given unequivocal and unambiguous statement on China is clearly Jake Sullivan. Jake says, really, we have a problem. And the problem is that their narrative has to be kind of met with a counter narrative, because right now there is no counter. So therefore, they are stealing. By the way, just to wrap up on that China and Laos, we don't have time. There are 7 distinct incursions that is going on. Survey ships are going around the South China Sea, entering the terrains of various different contentious places. from Philippines to Thailand to Japan to Taiwan to Indonesia, now as you can see into Myanmar, everywhere. So it is trying to poke its nose. Whether it will become its undoing, we don't know, but clearly that the presence of Trump is, or the absence of Trump is being felt. All this is happening while he left office and a new person has taken over. Right until now, they were not wagging their tail. They're waiting for their time. Okay, now you can see all these kinds of things happening. So that, to some extent, answers your question whether there is a hidden hand of China in Myanmar. The only conclusion that we can draw, possibly.
Couple of quick things that I would like you to take a look at. First off, the global COVID update. The global cases are at 103 million and deaths are at 2.24 million, and about 26 million are active. So now what we are having is that the stimulus package again comes to the front and center. From 1.9 trillion, some senators are offering an alternate plan which is only 600 billion. Is this realistic, or is it slashing too much? Is it a Republican senator's plan? What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think we have trained our audiences extremely well in the budgeting process and the COVID economic multipliers. And what they're saying is we have already put $3.14 trillion into the economy. So therefore, what are the top three priorities? The top three priorities are giving money to people who are actually going to spend, who are needy. That is, give the extra $1,400 to people who are earning less than $150,000. The people who are earning combined income of $150,000 right now don't need money. So you give that money, but give it to a tier. So it goes and translates itself into spend. It seems reasonable, according to Biden as well. Okay, so give the money. So they put 1,000, but they would be open to 1,400. Translated roughly, if you use yesterday's arithmetic, $400 is 165. Is about $330 billion kind of goes towards that money, right? If you double it, or if you kind of triple it, you add another maybe 100 billion, so about 400. Unemployment insurance was roughly around 85 or 100 billion dollars. So they're saying extend the unemployment insurance for 10 more weeks, which is the right thing to do, because again, people who are going to spend. Then the third thing that I'm saying is clearly you need help, because now you have given the child credit in phase 1 and phase 2. So that doesn't need to be touched. Now you go to the third piece, which is namely the COVID. So maybe, we have already given close to $230 billion on COVID, $82 billion roughly in the last one. So maybe we should give again, for the rapid movement of the thing. So when you add these numbers, and then of course, augmented support as an option to be used from the prior unspent stimulus to the small business sector, because all of the small business loans were not utilized. So let's go back and take, because if you recall, Steve Mnuchin said, I'm not giving it to you, I'm putting it back in the treasury. Pass a bill and get that capital released. There's close to about $455 billion sitting in that bill unused. So he's saying, okay, we can use that and direct it. So all you need is $600 billion, and rest of the stuff is goggle doodle. It's not going to create any economic multiplier. It is only going to add burden. So there is no surprise Mr. Biden has called his 10 Republican senators to dialogue with him on the stimulus rather than his Democratic colleagues. So how the politics plays out is not that he may basically give and go ahead with the 600 so it gets released to the economy. To me, anything beyond that is going to be not very good when you look at the actual multipliers. We have not given that table, but we'll share that table as well. So economic multipliers that flow from the stimulus program ranges from 0.56x to 0.72x on the low to high scale. That is why you saw that hockey stick effect. Now, what happened to the other kind of portion of the dollar? The other portion of the dollar is a waste. It did not produce any economic outcome. It became a good socialistic capital for posthumous reasons rather than anything to do with economics.
I must mention, this is the last item. The Dow futures are down, and I must also mention that the way the stimulus has been distributed to the population, the first 2,000 was sent in the form of a check. Now, what I have received for the 600 is a debit card. Now, think about what happens. Once debit cards are issued, those are live. So, government can put any amount of money by just doing a transfer from the treasury to your bank account. So, they are eliminating even the processing of printing of checks, sending it over the email, over the mail, and so on and so forth. So, that is a good step in the right direction. So, we are also priming ourselves with the view that it's going to be a few more stimuli checks down the road. That is inevitable because you're seeing that still things are not under control. So I think in all these things, it's a good move. We should appreciate some things that are happening in the right direction. So maybe it was all Trump that did this thing before he demitted office. Whatever it is, this is a good move in my opinion. I think with this, we will bring our today's program to an end. Tomorrow, we're going to take a look at what Sridharji alluded to about China's plans around 7 different regions. 3 of them happen to be in India. And what it's up to. We'll have a detailed look at that. Thanks for joining. As always, Namaskar Sridharji, and we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channels. Namaskar.